The notification appeared on Angela Brennan's phone at exactly 9:47 on a Wednesday evening. A bank alert. $721 charged to their joint credit card at Le Jardin Blanc, a French restaurant she had never heard of. She stared at the screen, her dark eyes narrowing as she reread the message. $721 for dinner on a Wednesday night. Mark had texted her 3 hours earlier saying he would be working late on a presentation for an important client. He had been working late a lot recently. Too much, she had thought, but she had pushed the concern aside. He was a marketing executive. Late nights came with the territory, or so she had told herself. Angela set her wine glass down on the granite countertop of their modern kitchen and opened her laptop. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, searching for Le Jardin Blanc. The restaurant's website loaded, displaying elegant photographs of candlelit tables, intimate private dining rooms, and couples gazing at each other over crystal wine glasses. The description boasted about their romantic ambiance, their award-winning wine cellar, and their reputation as the perfect destination for special occasions and intimate celebrations. The restaurant was located in a neighboring town 45 minutes away. Not somewhere you would casually stop for takeout after a long presentation meeting. Not somewhere you would spend over $700 on a business dinner with colleagues. This was a destination, a planned evening, a romantic getaway. Angela's heart began to pound. Her hands trembled slightly as she clicked through the menu prices. An average entree cost $35. Even with wine, appetizers, and dessert for 2 people, reaching over $700 would require ordering the most expensive items on the menu. This was not a casual meal. This was a celebration. She heard the front door open downstairs. Mark's footsteps echoed through their 3-story townhouse as he climbed the stairs to the main floor. Angela closed her laptop quickly and picked up her wine glass, forcing her expression into something resembling calm. Her architectural training had taught her to maintain composure under pressure, to present finished designs to difficult clients without showing nerves. She would need that skill now. "Hey, sorry I'm so late," Mark said as he entered the kitchen. He was 42 years old, with light brown hair that was beginning to gray at the temples, giving him what he called his distinguished look. He wore an expensive charcoal suit that Angela had helped him pick out last Christmas. His tie was loosened, his top button undone. He looked tired. Or perhaps he wanted to look tired. "How was the presentation?" Angela asked, her voice steady. She took a sip of wine and watched him over the rim of her glass. "Exhausting," he said, setting his briefcase down on the counter. The client kept changing their mind about the direction. "We ended up ordering Chinese food and working through dinner. I'm starving, actually. Is there anything left from what you made?" Chinese food. The lie came so easily to him, so casually, as if he had not just spent over $700 at an elegant French restaurant 45 minutes away, as if he had not just looked into someone else's eyes over candlelight while his wife of 11 years waited at home alone. "There's pasta in the fridge," Angela said quietly. She studied his face, searching for guilt, for hesitation, for any sign that he knew she knew. But there was nothing, just tired eyes and the easy confidence of a man who believed his lies were working. As he moved past her to open the refrigerator, she caught the scent. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Perfume. Not her perfume. Something sweeter, heavier, more floral. The kind of perfume a younger woman might wear. The kind of perfume that would cling to a man's jacket after a long, intimate dinner in a private dining room. Angela excused herself and went upstairs to their bedroom. She sat on the edge of their king-sized bed, the bed they had shared for 11 years, and felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. The room spun slightly. She pressed her palm against her chest, feeling her heart hammering against her ribcage. This was real. This was happening. Her husband was lying to her. Her husband was cheating on her. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run downstairs and throw the bank notification in his face and demand answers. She wanted to shatter the careful, constructed normalcy of their life together, but something stopped her. Some instinct for self-preservation, some voice in her head that whispered, "Not yet. Wait. Learn more." That night, Angela lay awake beside her husband as he slept peacefully, his breathing deep and even. The man who had just lied to her face was sleeping without guilt, without remorse, without the weight of betrayal keeping him awake. She stared at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across the white surface as car headlights passed outside their window. At 2 a.m, when she was certain he was deeply asleep, Angela carefully lifted his right hand. Mark had always been a heavy sleeper, especially after drinking. She had noticed the empty beer bottle on the kitchen counter when she had gone down for water. She pressed his thumb against his phone's sensor. The screen unlocked. Her hands shook as she navigated to his settings and enabled message synchronization with the cloud. Every text message, every photo, every conversation was now backing up to a server that she could access from her own tablet downstairs. She carefully placed his phone back on the nightstand and slipped out of bed. In the home office they shared on the 3rd floor, Angela logged into the cloud account from her tablet. She watched as 11 years of marriage downloaded itself into stark, brutal evidence. Message after message, photo after photo, plans, promises, intimacies shared with someone else. Her name was Cindy Cole, 28 years old, a model, long blonde hair that fell past her shoulders in perfect waves, blue eyes, a smile that looked practiced, professional, designed to sell products and catch attention. She was beautiful in an obvious way, in a way that made Angela suddenly aware of every line around her own eyes, every strand of gray she had been meaning to color, every extra pound she carried. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months of good-morning texts and late-night calls. 4 months of stolen afternoons and elaborate lies. 4 months of Mark telling this woman things he used to tell Angela, that she was beautiful, that she made him feel alive, that he could not stop thinking about her. There were photos. Cindy in lingerie, Cindy at the beach, Cindy in Mark's car, her hand on his thigh, Mark and Cindy together, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera with the easy intimacy of people who had stopped pretending to keep distance. Angela read through the messages with a strange detachment, as if she were reading about someone else's life, someone else's husband, someone else's marriage falling apart in a series of text bubbles and photo attachments. But then she reached the recent messages, the ones from yesterday, and the detachment shattered. Mark to Cindy, Tuesday evening. Told her I have a corporate retreat this weekend. 3 days, Friday through Sunday. Cindy to Mark. 3 whole days. Where are we going? Mark to Cindy. Remember that cabin I told you about? The one by the lake? Cindy to Mark. The romantic getaway place you mentioned? Mark to Cindy. That's the one. I booked it. Just us. No interruptions. No phone calls. 3 days to do whatever we want. Cindy to Mark. I can't wait. I'm already packing. Should I bring that red dress you like? Mark to Cindy. Bring everything you like. You won't be wearing much of it anyway. The cabin. Their cabin. The place Angela and Mark had bought together 5 years ago as a retreat from city life. A small, charming house nestled in the woods, 40 minutes outside the city, accessible by a private road that crossed a wooden bridge over a narrow lake. They had spent weekends there, holidays there, anniversaries there. It was their place, their sanctuary, and Mark was taking Cindy there. Angela set the tablet down carefully on the desk. She stood up slowly, walked to the bathroom attached to the office, and vomited. When there was nothing left in her stomach, she sat on the cold tile floor and cried silently, her body shaking with sobs she did not dare let out loud enough for Mark to hear. She cried for the 11 years she had given him, for the late nights she had worked on architectural projects, while he claimed to be working late at the office, for the business trips she had skipped to support his career. For the family she had postponed having because he said he was not ready yet. For every time she had believed him when he said he loved her. For every lie she had swallowed without question. But most of all, she cried because some part of her had known. Some instinct she had ignored because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging that her marriage was a lie, that the man she loved did not exist, that she had been a fool. When the tears finally stopped, Angela stood up and looked at herself in the mirror. Her dark hair was tangled. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her face was pale. She looked like a woman whose world had just ended. And in a way, it had. The life she thought she had, the future she thought she was building, the partnership she thought she had with her husband, all of it was gone, shattered. Destroyed by $721 charged to a French restaurant, and 4 months of text messages with a blonde 28-year-old model. Angela splashed cold water on her face and took several deep breaths. She gripped the edge of the sink and stared at her reflection. Something was shifting inside her. The grief was still there, heavy and suffocating, but underneath it, something else was growing, something harder, something colder, something that whispered, "He does not get to do this without consequences." She would not beg, she would not plead, she would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her broken. If Mark had made his choice, then Angela would make hers, and her choice would be calculated, strategic, and absolutely devastating. The next morning, Angela called in sick to work. She waited until Mark left for the office, whistling cheerfully as he walked out the door, and then she picked up her phone. Her hands were steadier now. The shock had worn off, replaced by a strange clarity. She knew exactly who she needed to call. "Elise, it's me," Angela said, when her best friend answered. "Can you come over? I need your help with something." Dr. Elise Pollard arrived 30 minutes later. She was 40 years old, with short auburn hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She worked as a research chemist for a pharmaceutical company, and she had been Angela's closest friend since college. They had been roommates, study partners, bridesmaids in each other's weddings. Elise knew Angela better than anyone. One look at Angela's face, and Elise did not ask questions. She simply pulled Angela into a hug and held her while Angela cried again, this time letting the sobs come freely. When Angela finally pulled away, Elise guided her to the couch and waited. Angela told her everything. The bank notification, the restaurant, the perfume, the messages, the photos, the cabin, Mark's lies, Cindy's existence. 4 months of betrayal documented in text bubbles and photo attachments. By the time Angela finished, Elise's expression had shifted from sympathy to cold fury. "That absolute bastard," Elise said quietly. "After everything you've done for him, after everything you've sacrificed, I want him to hurt the way I'm hurting," Angela admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want him to feel what I feel, but I don't want to just scream at him and throw things. I want something more, something he'll never forget." Elise was silent for a long moment, her analytical mind clearly working through possibilities. Then she said, "Tell me about the cabin, the logistics. When are they going? How do they get there?" Angela explained. The cabin was accessible only by a private gravel road that wound through the woods. About 600 meters before reaching the house, the road crossed a small wooden bridge over a lake. The bridge was sturdy, but old. The cabin itself had electricity, running water from a well with an electric pump, and a backup generator in case of power outages. It was isolated, peaceful, romantic. Everything Mark had promised Cindy. Friday through Sunday, Angela said. "He told me yesterday morning that he has a mandatory corporate retreat. 3 days of team-building exercises and strategic planning. I even helped him pack his bag last night. I stood there folding his shirts while he texted her." The memory brought fresh tears, but Angela blinked them away. Crying would not fix this. Planning would. Elise leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, her expression intense. "I have an idea," she said slowly. but it's going to require some preparation. And you're going to need to decide if you really want to do this. Because once we start, there's no going back. Tell me, Angela said. Hydrogen peroxide, Elise began. In high concentrations, when activated by heat and not rinsed properly, it causes severe damage to hair. It breaks down the protein structure, leaves it brittle, dry, looks like burned straw. It's completely safe for skin and health, but absolutely devastating for hair, especially long, professionally maintained hair, the kind a model would depend on for her career. Angela stared at her friend. You want to ruin her hair? I want to give you options, Elise corrected. And I want Mark's perfect little romantic weekend to fall apart. Because men like him, they don't just deserve to lose what they have. They deserve to watch it crumble while they're powerless to stop it. How would we even do that? Angela asked, but her mind was already working, already seeing the possibilities. This was what she did as an architect. She saw problems and found solutions. She planned spaces and anticipated how people would move through them. This was just another project, just another design challenge. The water system, Elise said. You said it runs from a well with an electric pump. We add the hydrogen peroxide to the holding tank. When she takes a hot shower, the heat activates the chemical. If she doesn't rinse it completely, maybe because something interrupts the shower, the damage is done. Gradual at first, then accelerating over hours. Angela felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. Not quite hope, not quite joy. Something darker and more satisfying. Justice, perhaps. Or revenge. She was not sure there was a difference anymore. What if we did more than that? Angela said slowly. What if we made sure the entire weekend fell apart? Not just her hair. Everything. Elise smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who had watched her best friend suffer and wanted to see that suffering balanced. Tell me what you're thinking. Angela stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street lined with mature trees. Her mind was racing, pieces falling into place like a complex architectural blueprint coming together. She had spent 11 years designing spaces, anticipating how people would use them, planning for every contingency. This would be no different, except this time, she was designing consequences. The bridge, Angela said, turning back to Elise. The wooden bridge over the lake. It's old, needs maintenance. Mark and I have talked about repairing it for 2 years, but never got around to it. What if it became impassable? Not dangerous, nothing that would hurt anyone. Just damaged enough that a car couldn't cross it. They'd have to walk the rest of the way, Elise said, understanding immediately. 600 meters carrying their luggage. Inconvenient, but manageable. Exactly. Romantic, even. A little walk through the woods to start their weekend, Angela said, her voice hollow. But then, when things start going wrong, when they want to leave, they'd find their car on the other side of a broken bridge. Elise pulled out her phone and started typing notes. My husband could help with that. Marvin knows structural engineering. He could make it look natural, like the wood finally gave way. Safe enough to walk across, but not stable enough to drive over. Angela nodded slowly. Marvin Pollard was a skilled mechanic who had worked in construction before opening his own auto repair shop. He was the kind of man who could fix anything, build anything, or in this case, carefully break something in exactly the right way. What about the power? Angela asked. The cabin has electricity from the main grid. I'm the primary account holder. What if I called and requested a scheduled outage? I could say we're doing electrical repairs, need the power cut at a specific time. What time do you think she'll shower? Elise asked, her analytical mind already working through the chemistry. The hydrogen peroxide needs heat to activate fully. A hot shower is perfect, but if the water stops mid-shower, if she can't rinse completely, the chemical stays in contact with her hair longer. The damage would be severe. Angela thought about the messages she had read. Mark and Cindy planned to arrive Friday evening. Based on their conversation, Cindy would want to look perfect for their romantic dinner. She would shower, style her hair, put on that red dress Mark liked. Women like Cindy, women whose appearance was their profession, they prepared meticulously. 7:30, Angela said. Maybe 8 o'clock Friday evening. They'll arrive around 6, unpack, have some wine. She'll want to freshen up before dinner. So we scheduled the power outage for 8 o'clock, Elise said. The electricity cuts out. The well pump stops working. She's in the shower with hydrogen peroxide in her hair, and suddenly there's no water to rinse it out. And no lights to see what's happening, Angela added. The cabin has some emergency candles and flashlights, but in the dark, in the confusion, the damage will be done before she realizes how bad it is. Elise stood up and put her hands on Angela's shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. Are you absolutely sure about this? Because what you're describing is elaborate. It requires planning, execution, commitment, and it requires you to be okay with what happens, not just to Mark, but to her. Angela thought about Cindy Cole, 28 years old, beautiful, ambitious, a woman who had knowingly pursued a married man, who had sent him photos in lingerie, who had made plans to spend a weekend in his wife's cabin, sleeping in his wife's bed, using his wife's home as the backdrop for her affair. Whatever sympathy Angela might have had for her evaporated. She knew he was married, Angela said quietly. She knew, and she didn't care. She gets what she gets. Then we need to plan this properly, Elise said, releasing Angela's shoulders and reaching for her phone again. We need a timeline, materials. We need to make sure nothing can be traced back to you. And we need to make sure Mark and Cindy actually experience every single consequence we design. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Elise called Marvin and explained the situation in careful, clinical terms. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone, and then Marvin's deep voice said, "When do you need me to do this?" "Thursday," Elise told him. "We need to go Thursday afternoon. Angela will come with us. She has keys to everything, access to the property. We'll have maybe 3 hours to set everything up before we need to leave." "I'll take the afternoon off," Marvin agreed. "And Angela? I'm sorry this is happening to you. Mark always seemed like a decent guy. Guess I was wrong." After Elise hung up, Angela made her own phone call. She dialed the electric company and waited through the automated menu until she reached a customer service representative. "Hello. Need to schedule a temporary service disconnection," Angela said, her voice professional and calm. Years of presenting architectural designs to clients had taught her how to sound confident even when her hands were shaking. "I'm renovating the electrical system at my country property and need the power shut off for safety reasons. I can help you with that," the representative said cheerfully. "What's the address and your account number?" Angela provided the information. The cabin was registered in her name only. She had been the one to handle all the utility accounts, all the maintenance, all the boring administrative details of property ownership, while Mark enjoyed the benefits of weekend getaways. That administrative control was now going to be her weapon. "When would you like the disconnection?" the representative asked. "Friday evening," Angela said. 8 o'clock would be perfect, and I'd like it to remain off through Sunday evening if possible. The electricians will be working all weekend. Let me check availability, the representative said. There was typing in the background. "Yes, I can schedule that for you. Friday at 8 p.m., restoration on Monday morning. Is that acceptable?" "That's perfect. Thank you," Angela said. She hung up and looked at Elise. "Done. Power cuts at 8 o'clock Friday evening and stays off until Monday morning. Now we need the hydrogen peroxide," Elise said. "Medical grade, 35% concentration. I can get it from the lab. Nobody will question me taking chemicals for research purposes. We'll need about 2 gallons to contaminate the entire water system effectively." "Won't he notice something in the water?" Angela asked. "Not immediately," Elise explained. "Hydrogen peroxide is colorless, tasteless, odorless in lower concentrations. By the time it's diluted through the entire holding tank and plumbing system, it'll be virtually undetectable. But when it concentrates on her hair under hot water, when it has time to work without being rinsed away, that's when the chemical reaction happens. The heat accelerates the breakdown of the keratin proteins in hair. It becomes brittle, discolored, damaged beyond repair. Angela felt a cold satisfaction settling in her chest. It was not happiness. It was not peace. It was something darker and more necessary. The feeling of taking back control after months of being deceived. The feeling of refusing to be a victim. "What about documentation?" Angela asked. "I want to see what happens. I want to watch his perfect weekend fall apart." Elise considered this. Security cameras, battery-powered, night vision, connected to a mobile router so they can transmit even without the cabin's electricity. We set them up inside and outside. You can watch everything in real time from your tablet. "Where would we even get cameras like that?" Angela asked. "Marvin's shop has a full security system," Elise said. "Small cameras he uses to monitor the garage at night. Battery-operated, motion-activated, wireless transmission. He can bring them Thursday. We'll hide them where Mark will never think to look." Angela walked back to the couch and sat down heavily. The planning was taking shape, becoming real, transitioning from angry fantasy to actual possibility. Part of her could not believe she was doing this. The Angela from 2 days ago, the Angela who had trusted her husband and believed in her marriage, would never have considered something like this. But that Angela was gone, destroyed by $721 and 4 months of lies. "I need to see Mark tonight," Angela said quietly. "I need to pretend everything is normal. I need to help him pack for his fake corporate retreat and smile and kiss him goodbye and act like I don't know he's planning to spend the weekend with another woman in our cabin." "Can you do that?" Elise asked gently. Angela looked at her friend, and for the first time since discovering the affair, she felt something like strength returning. "I'm an architect. I spent my entire career presenting designs to clients who don't appreciate them, negotiating with contractors who don't respect me, fighting for my vision in rooms full of men who assume I'm someone's assistant. If I can do that, I can pretend to love a husband who's betraying me for 3 more days." Elise reached over and squeezed Angela's hand. "You're not alone in this. Marvin and I are with you. Whatever you need, whenever you need it." "Thank you," Angela whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd figure it out," Elise said firmly, "because you're one of the strongest people I know. Mark is a fool. He threw away the best thing that ever happened to him, and he's about to learn exactly what he lost." After Elise left, Angela spent the rest of the afternoon moving through her house like a ghost, seeing it with new eyes. Every piece of furniture she and Mark had chosen together, every photograph on the walls documenting 11 years of marriage, every small domestic detail that had seemed to prove they were building a life together, all of it felt like evidence of her own stupidity. How had she not seen this coming? How had she missed the signs? She thought about the last 6 months, reviewing memories with the cruel clarity of hindsight. Mark coming home late more frequently. Mark being more attentive to his appearance, buying new cologne, spending longer in the bathroom styling his hair. Mark being distant during dinner, always on his phone, always distracted. Mark making excuses to avoid her family gatherings, her work events, anything that required him to focus on her instead of himself. The signs had been there. Angela had just chosen to interpret them charitably. He was stressed at work. He was going through a midlife crisis. He needed space. She had made excuses for him the way wives have made excuses for unfaithful husbands since the beginning of time. She had been complicit in her own deception. That evening, when Mark came home from work, Angela was in the kitchen making dinner. She had showered, put on makeup, styled her hair. She looked like the wife she had been pretending to be for 11 years. Beautiful, capable, devoted, the perfect partner for a successful marketing executive. "Something smells amazing," Mark said. kissing her cheek as he set down his briefcase. The casual affection felt like a knife between her ribs, but Angela smiled. "Chicken piccata, your favorite," she said lightly. "I thought you deserved something special before your big retreat this weekend." "You're the best," Mark said, loosening his tie. He had no idea how true that statement was. He had no idea what he was losing or what was about to happen to him. During dinner, they talked about mundane things. His presentation from yesterday, which he continued to lie about smoothly. Her latest architectural project, which he pretended to be interested in while checking his phone repeatedly. The weather forecast for the weekend, which he claimed to be concerned about for his corporate retreat, but was probably actually checking for his romantic getaway. "Do you have everything packed?" Angela asked, her voice sweet and concerned. "Most of it," Mark said. "I still need to grab a few things. The retreat is pretty casual, so just jeans and a couple of nice shirts." "Let me help you," Angela offered. "I'll go through your closet and pull some options while you finish eating." She went upstairs to their bedroom and stood in front of Mark's closet, staring at the rows of expensive suits and casual designer clothes she had helped him pick out, clothes he was wearing to impress another woman. Angela pulled out a duffel bag and began selecting items mechanically. Jeans, shirts, underwear, socks. His favorite cologne that he would spray for Cindy, not for his wife. As she folded a blue button-down shirt, Angela felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back furiously. Not now. Not yet. She would have time to cry later, after Mark was gone, after the plan was in motion. Right now, she needed to be the perfect wife for 3 more days. Mark came upstairs and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you for doing this," he said. "I know these work trips are annoying." Work trips. The lie came so easily. Angela wondered how many other lies she had believed over 11 years. How many late nights at the office were actually dinner dates? How many business trips included a mistress? How long had she been living in a fantasy while Mark built a separate life behind her back? "It's fine," Angela said, turning in his arms and kissing him lightly. "That's what partners do. We support each other. Partners. What a joke. Partners implied equality, mutual respect, shared commitment. They were not partners. They were a husband who lied and a wife who had been too trusting to question him. But that was ending. Starting Friday evening, everything was going to change. Thursday morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Angela called in sick to work again, claiming a stomach virus. Her supervisor was sympathetic and told her to take care of herself. If only he knew what taking care of herself actually meant today. Elise and Marvin picked Angela up at noon. Marvin's truck was loaded with tools, equipment, and supplies carefully hidden under a tarp. He was a solid man in his early 40s, with dark hair, kind eyes, and the capable hands of someone who had spent his life building and fixing things. He had met Mark several times at dinner parties and gatherings, had laughed at his jokes, and shaken his hand like men do. Learning about the affair had turned that friendliness into cold contempt. "How are you holding up?" Marvin asked Angela as she climbed into the truck. "I'm numb," Angela admitted. "I keep thinking this is a nightmare, and I'll wake up, but I don't wake up. It just keeps being real." "Mark's an idiot," Marvin said bluntly, as he started driving toward the cabin. "Any man who would cheat on a woman like you is a fool, and fools deserve what's coming to them." The drive to the cabin took 45 minutes through winding country roads lined with autumn trees. Angela had made this drive hundreds of times with Mark, excited for weekend getaways, looking forward to quality time together away from the city. Now the familiar route felt contaminated, ruined by the knowledge that Mark had been planning to bring Cindy here to share this place with her. They turned onto the private gravel road that led to the cabin. The road wound through dense woods, peaceful and isolated. After about a quarter mile, they reached the wooden bridge that crossed the narrow lake. Marvin stopped the truck and got out to inspect the structure. "It's definitely old," he said, kneeling to examine the support beams. Pressure-treated wood. But it's been here what? 15 years? Almost 20, Angela said. It was here when we bought the property. Marvin nodded slowly, his eyes calculating. Here's what I'm thinking. I can remove several bolts from the center support beam. Not enough to make it collapse, but enough that a car's weight will stress it beyond capacity. People walking across will be fine. The wood will hold, but a vehicle will cause it to sag and crack. Not dangerous, just impassable. Do it, Angela said. While Marvin worked on the bridge, Elise and Angela drove the remaining 600 meters to the cabin. It was a charming structure, all natural wood and large windows overlooking the lake. Angela and Mark had chosen every detail together 5 years ago. The stone fireplace, the modern kitchen, the spacious bedroom with the king-sized bed, their sanctuary, their private retreat. Now, it was going to be the stage for Mark's downfall. Inside, Elise immediately assessed the water system. The cabin used a well with an electric pump that filled a holding tank in the basement. From there, the water was distributed throughout the house. Elise opened the access panel and examined the tank carefully. "This is perfect," she said, pulling on rubber gloves. "The tank holds about 50 gallons. I'll add the hydrogen peroxide directly here. It'll mix with the existing water naturally. By the time it reaches the shower head and is heated, the concentration will be sufficient to cause damage without being immediately noticeable." She retrieved 2 large containers of clear liquid from her bag and carefully poured them into the holding tank. Angela watched, feeling surreal. Her best friend was poisoning the water supply of her cabin to ruin another woman's hair as revenge for an affair. This was her life now. This was what betrayal had reduced her to. After Elise finished with the water system, they moved methodically through the cabin, setting up the surveillance cameras. Marvin had returned from the bridge and joined them, his tools spread across the kitchen counter as he configured each small device. "These are motion-activated," Marvin explained, holding up a camera no larger than a matchbox. "Night vision capable. Battery life of 72 hours minimum. They'll transmit directly to this mobile router, which runs on its own battery pack. Even without the cabin's electricity, everything will function perfectly." They positioned cameras strategically throughout the space. One in the living room, angled to capture the main seating area and entrance. One in the kitchen, pointing toward the dining table. One in the hallway outside the bathroom, where it could record audio without being intrusive. And 2 exterior cameras, one facing the driveway where Mark would park his car, and one covering the front door and porch. "I'm not putting one in the bedroom," Angela said firmly when Marvin suggested it. "I don't want to see that. I don't need to see that." "Fair enough," Marvin agreed, respecting her boundary. "The other cameras will show you everything that matters anyway." Angela walked through the cabin one final time, memorizing details. The soft blue couch, where she and Mark had spent countless evenings reading. The dining table where they had hosted dinners for friends. The kitchen where they had cooked together, laughing over burned attempts at new recipes. Every surface held memories. And knowing that Cindy would soon be touching these same surfaces, sitting in these same spaces, pretending this was her refuge instead of Angela's, made everything feel poisoned. She stopped in the bedroom doorway but did not enter. The cream-colored duvet they had bought together, the framed photographs on the dresser showing happier times that now felt like lies. The reading lamp on Mark's side of the bed that he always left on too late, making it hard for Angela to sleep. She had complained about that lamp for years, a small domestic irritation that now seemed unbearably precious, because it was real and ordinary and part of their actual life together. "Angela!" Elise's voice came from behind her. "We need to go soon. We've been here almost 2 hours." Angela nodded without turning around. "I know. I'm just saying goodbye." "To the cabin?" Elise asked gently. "To everything," Angela said. "After this weekend, nothing will be the same. Even if I keep this place, even if I come back here someday, it won't ever feel like mine again. He took that from me. He took all of it. Elise put her arm around Angela's shoulders. Then we make sure he pays for it. Come on, let's finish this. They locked up the cabin carefully, leaving everything exactly as they had found it, except for the hidden cameras and contaminated water. On the drive back to the bridge, Angela looked in the side mirror and watched the cabin disappear behind the trees. She wondered if she would ever return. She wondered if she would want to. At the bridge, they found Marvin washing his hands in the lake, his tools already packed away in the truck. The structure looked completely normal from the outside, sturdy wooden planks stretching across the water. Only someone who examined it closely would notice the missing bolts in the support structure, the strategic weakening that would cause it to fail under the weight of a vehicle. "It's done," Marvin said. "Anyone walking across will be completely safe, but a car will stress the center beam enough to cause visible damage. Wood will crack, boards will sag. It'll look like natural deterioration, like the bridge finally gave out after years of use." "Thank you," Angela said quietly. "Both of you. I don't know how I would do this without you." "You're not supposed to do it without us," Marvin replied. "That's what friends are for, supporting you when life gets hard, and making sure the people who hurt you face consequences." They drove back to the city in silence. Angela sat in the back seat, watching the countryside pass by, her mind already jumping ahead to Friday evening. She imagined Mark and Cindy arriving at the cabin, excited and carefree. She imagined them discovering the bridge, the minor inconvenience that would seem romantic rather than ominous. She imagined them settling into the cabin, opening wine, preparing for their perfect weekend. And then she imagined everything falling apart. The thought should have made her feel guilty. The old Angela, the Angela from a week ago, would have been horrified at herself for planning something so elaborate and vindictive. But that Angela had been naive, trusting, blind to the truth. This new Angela, the one who had read 4 months of lies and looked at photos of her husband with another woman, this Angela felt no guilt at all, only a cold determination to make sure Mark understood exactly what he had destroyed. That evening, Angela helped Mark finish packing for his fake corporate retreat. She folded his clothes neatly, tucked his toiletries into a side pocket, zipped up the duffel bag with care. She played the role of supportive wife flawlessly, asking about his schedule, wishing him productive meetings, kissing him goodbye at the door. "I'll miss you," Mark said, holding her close. The embrace felt like a performance, like he was rehearsing lines for a play. Or maybe Angela was just seeing the truth that had always been there. "I'll miss you too," Angela lied. "Have a good time. Learn lots of strategies." "I'll try," Mark said with a smile. "Love you." "Love you too," Angela said, automatically. The words felt like ashes in her mouth. After he left, Angela stood in the empty house and felt the silence press against her eardrums. This was it. The plan was in motion. Mark was driving toward the cabin where Cindy was probably already waiting or would arrive soon. In a few hours, they would cross the damaged bridge and settle into the cabin. In a few hours, the power would cut. In a few hours, everything would begin to unravel. Angela picked up her phone and texted Elise. "He just left." The response came immediately. "Come over. Marvin is setting up the tablet. We'll watch together. You shouldn't be alone for this." Angela grabbed her purse and drove to Elise and Marvin's house on the other side of the city. They lived in a comfortable 2-story home with a neat garden and a garage where Marvin stored his projects. Elise opened the door before Angela could knock, pulling her inside with a fierce hug. "How are you doing?" Elise asked. "I don't know," Angela admitted. "I keep feeling like I should stop this, like I should call Mark and warn him. But then I remember the messages. I remember the photos. I remember 4 months of lies. And I think, why should I protect him? He didn't protect me." "You're right," Elise said firmly. "He made his choices. Now he gets to live with the consequences." In the living room, Marvin had set up Angela's tablet on the coffee table. The screen was divided into 6 sections, each showing a different camera feed from the cabin. The images were clear and sharp, currently showing empty rooms waiting for occupants. It felt surreal, like watching a stage before the actors arrived. "The cameras are working perfectly," Marvin said. "Motion activated, so they'll start recording as soon as anyone enters the frame. Audio is good too. You'll be able to hear everything they say." Angela sat down on the couch, staring at the screen. Elise brought her a glass of wine. Marvin ordered pizza for dinner. They settled in to wait. 3 people watching a tablet like it was the most important television show ever broadcast. At 6:15, the exterior camera facing the driveway activated. Mark's silver sedan appeared, driving slowly up the gravel road toward the bridge. Angela's heart rate accelerated. This was really happening. There was no turning back now. The car stopped at the bridge. Through the windshield, Angela could see Mark behind the wheel and a blonde woman in the passenger seat, Cindy. Angela had seen her photos, but seeing her in real time, in person, sitting in the car where Angela herself had sat hundreds of times, made everything feel viscerally, painfully real. Mark got out of the car and walked onto the bridge, testing it carefully. Angela watched him examine the wood, saw him kneel down to look at the support structure, saw the moment he noticed something was wrong. He stood up slowly, looked back at the car, then walked forward again more carefully. The bridge held his weight easily, just as Marvin had promised it would. Mark returned to the car. Angela could see him talking to Cindy, gesturing at the bridge. Cindy got out, and Angela got her first real look at the woman who had been sleeping with her husband for 4 months. She was tall and slender, wearing expensive jeans and a cream-colored sweater. Her blonde hair was exactly as long and perfect as it had appeared in photos. She looked young, confident, beautiful, everything Angela suddenly felt she was not. Together, Mark and Cindy examined the bridge. They talked for several minutes, Mark clearly explaining the situation. Then they made a decision. They began unloading luggage from the trunk: 2 expensive suitcases, a cooler, a bag of groceries. Mark hefted the cooler and 1 suitcase. Cindy took her own suitcase and the groceries. They started walking across the bridge carefully, their footsteps slow and measured. 600 meters, Elise said quietly, watching the screen. Carrying all that, it'll take them at least 10 minutes. Angela watched as Mark and Cindy disappeared from the exterior camera's view, walking down the road toward the cabin. The interior cameras remained dark, waiting. Angela found herself holding her breath, even though she knew exactly what was about to happen because she had planned every detail. At 6:32, the front door of the cabin opened. Mark entered first, setting down the cooler and luggage. He looked slightly winded from the walk, but was smiling. Cindy followed, laughing about something, her hair swinging as she looked around the cabin with obvious delight. "Oh my God, Mark, this place is gorgeous!" Cindy's voice came through the tablet speakers clearly. She had a high, sweet voice with a slight southern accent. "You weren't kidding. This is so romantic." "I told you," Mark said, pulling her into his arms. 3 days. Just us. No interruptions. They kissed, and Angela looked away from the screen. Elise squeezed her hand. Marvin quietly left the room, giving them privacy. "You don't have to watch every second," Elise said gently. "We can just monitor for the important parts." "No," Angela said, forcing herself to look back at the screen. "I need to see this. I need to understand who he really is. Not who I thought he was. Who he actually is when he thinks I don't know." "House?" For the next hour, Angela watched her husband play house with his mistress in the cabin she had decorated, using the furniture she had chosen, drinking wine from glasses she had purchased. They unpacked their suitcases in the bedroom, though Angela mostly looked away during those moments. They opened the expensive wine Mark had apparently brought specially for the occasion. They sat on the couch, her couch, talking and laughing with an ease that made Angela's chest ache. The worst part was seeing Mark happy, genuinely, visibly happy in a way he had not seemed with Angela in months, maybe years. He was animated, attentive, constantly touching Cindy, kissing her shoulder, playing with her hair. Was this who Mark became when he was truly himself? And if so, who had Angela been married to for 11 years? At 7:45, Cindy stood up from the couch and stretched. "I'm going to take a shower before dinner," she announced. "I want to look amazing for you tonight." "You always look amazing," Mark said, but Cindy was already walking toward the bathroom, blowing him a kiss. Angela sat forward, her entire body tense. This was it. The moment everything would begin to fall apart. She checked her watch. 15 minutes until the power cut. 15 minutes until the plan moved from theoretical to actual. In the bathroom, visible only through audio since there was no camera inside, they could hear water running. Cindy was singing softly, something pop and cheerful. The sound of the shower starting came through clearly. Mark was in the kitchen, preparing something for dinner. He moved around the space with familiarity, opening cabinets, finding pans. He knew where everything was because he had been here with Angela dozens of times. He knew which drawer held the utensils, which cabinet stored the spices, where the wine glasses lived. He was using Angela's knowledge, her organization, to impress another woman. 7:55. 5 minutes until the power cut. Angela's hands were shaking. She set down her wine glass before she could spill it. In the bathroom, the shower was still running. Cindy was shampooing her hair. Angela knew this because Cindy was talking to herself, narrating her routine. "Okay, shampoo first, then the deep conditioning treatment, then we'll see how these curls turn out for tonight." 8 o'clock arrived. The camera feeds flickered as the cabin's lights went out. The night vision kicked in immediately, painting everything in shades of green and gray. Mark stopped moving in the kitchen, looking up at the ceiling in confusion. "What the hell?" Mark's voice came through the speakers. He pulled out his phone and turned on its flashlight, sweeping it around the kitchen. In the bathroom, the water sounds stopped abruptly. A moment of silence, then Cindy's voice, confused and irritated. "Mark? What happened to the water?" "Power's out," Mark called back. He was walking through the cabin now, checking light switches, trying to understand what had happened. The pump must have shut off with the electricity. "But I'm not done rinsing!" Cindy's voice rose in pitch, frustration clear. "My hair is full of conditioner." "Just give me a second," Mark said, heading toward the breaker box near the back door. "It's probably just a tripped breaker." Angela leaned forward, watching Mark examine the breaker box in the green glow of the night vision camera. He flipped switches, tried resetting breakers, but nothing happened because the power company had cut the main line, exactly as Angela had requested. "I don't understand," Mark muttered. "Everything looks fine, but there's no power coming in." "Mark!" Cindy emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair hanging in wet strings around her face. Even through the green night vision, Angela could see that her hair looked wrong. Too sticky, too clumped together. The hydrogen peroxide mixed with the conditioner was already starting its chemical work. The water just stopped. "I need to rinse this out." "I'm trying," Mark said, frustrated. "I don't know what's wrong. The breaker box looks fine." "This is supposed to be a romantic weekend," Cindy snapped. "Not camping in the dark." Mark grabbed a flashlight from the emergency supply closet. "I'm going to check the car. Maybe something's wrong with the main power line. Just wait here." He headed for the door, pulling on his jacket. Angela watched as he walked down the driveway, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The exterior camera tracked his movement as he made his way down the 600 meters of road toward the bridge where he had left his car. Meanwhile, back in the cabin, Cindy was pacing the living room, touching her hair repeatedly. "This feels so weird," she muttered to herself. "Why is it so sticky?" Elise leaned toward the tablet. "The hydrogen peroxide is mixing with whatever products she used. It's activating. The chemical breakdown has started." Angela watched Cindy try to rinse her hair in the kitchen sink using bottled water, but there was not enough. She tried to comb through it, but her fingers kept getting stuck in the tangles. Frustration was turning into something closer to panic. Mark reached the bridge. His flashlight illuminated his car, parked exactly where he had left it on the far side. He started to cross the bridge, and Angela held her breath, even though she knew the bridge would hold his weight. Mark made it across safely. He reached his car and stood beside it, looking back toward the cabin. The night vision cameras had excellent range, catching the moment when his expression changed from frustration to confusion to something approaching horror. He pulled out his phone, turned on its flashlight, and aimed it at the ground around his car. Then he started walking in circles, the flashlight beam sweeping across the empty space. His car was there, but something was clearly wrong because his movements became increasingly frantic. Except nothing was wrong with his car. It was sitting exactly where he had parked it, untouched. So why did Mark look like his world was ending? Back at Elise and Marvin's house, the three of them watched the screen in confusion. "What's he doing?" Marvin asked. "Why does he look so panicked? The car is right there." And then Angela understood. Mark was not looking at his car. He was looking at the space beside his car, the space where a second car should have been parked, Cindy's car, and it was gone. Angela's breath caught in her throat. She had not planned this. She had not arranged for Cindy's car to disappear. This was something else entirely, something beyond her control, and the realization sent a jolt of surprise through her system. "Wait," Elise said, leaning closer to the screen. "Did Cindy drive separately?" "She must have," Marvin said, his voice thoughtful. "They probably didn't want to be seen arriving together. Less suspicious that way." Angela watched Mark through the night vision camera as he circled the area where Cindy's car should have been parked. He was using his phone's flashlight to examine the ground, looking for tire tracks, for any sign of what had happened. His movements were jerky, panicked, completely different from the confident man who had arrived hours earlier. This was not part of Angela's plan, but it was perfect, better than perfect. It was as if the universe itself had decided to participate in Mark's downfall, adding its own twist to the consequences he was about to face. Mark pulled out his phone and made a call. Through the audio feed, they could hear it ringing, then Cindy's voice answering. "Did you fix it?" Cindy asked immediately. "Your car is gone," Mark said, his voice tight with stress. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean, it's not here. I'm standing where we parked, and my car is here, but yours isn't. It's just gone." There was a long silence on the other end. Then Cindy's voice, higher and more shrill. "Gone? What do you mean gone? Cars don't just disappear." "I know that," Mark snapped, "but I'm telling you, it's not here. Someone must have stolen it." "Stolen it? You said this place was safe. You said it was private and secure and nobody would bother us." Cindy's voice was rising toward hysteria. "How am I supposed to get home? That car is a lease. I'm going to be responsible for thousands of dollars." "Calm down," Mark said, though he sounded far from calm himself. "Let me think. This area is completely quiet. There's never been any crime here. I don't understand how this could have happened." "Well, it happened," Cindy shrieked. "And meanwhile, I'm standing here in a towel with my hair full of chemicals, and no way to rinse it out, and no power, and no water, and now no car. This is a disaster." "I'll figure it out," Mark said, but he sounded uncertain, overwhelmed. "Just wait there. I'm coming back." He ended the call and stood for a moment beside his own car, illuminated by the night vision camera. Angela could see his chest rising and falling rapidly, could see the way his hands shook slightly as he ran them through his hair. This was not how his romantic weekend was supposed to go. This was not the careful escape he had planned. Mark started walking back toward the cabin, his flashlight beam bouncing with each step. 600 meters through the dark woods, alone, carrying the weight of everything going wrong. Angela watched his progress on the exterior cameras, tracking him as he made his way back across the bridge that would not support his car, back toward the cabin where his mistress was waiting with chemically damaged hair and no patience left. Inside the cabin, Cindy had given up trying to fix her hair with bottled water. She was sitting on the couch, wrapped in her towel, touching her hair repeatedly with increasing distress. Even through the green tint of the night vision, Angela could see that something was wrong with Cindy's hair. It looked matted, clumped together in strange ways, the texture clearly altered. "This doesn't feel right," Cindy muttered to herself. "This doesn't feel right at all." She stood up and walked to the bathroom, using her phone's flashlight to examine herself in the mirror. The scream that followed was piercing, desperate, the sound of someone discovering that something precious and irreplaceable had been destroyed. "No! No! 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 No!" Cindy's voice echoed through the cabin. "What happened? What did I do? Oh, God! Oh, God, my hair!" Mark burst through the front door just as Cindy emerged from the bathroom, still wrapped in the towel, her wet hair hanging around her face in stringy, damaged clumps. In the beam of Mark's flashlight, the damage was visible even to him. Her normally glossy blonde hair looked dull, brittle, with an almost orangish tint in places where the chemical reaction had been strongest. "What happened to your hair?" Mark asked, stunned. "I don't know," Cindy wailed. "It was fine. And then the water stopped, and I couldn't rinse out the conditioner. And now it feels like straw. It's breaking off in my hands. Look." She held out her palm, showing him several broken strands. "Maybe it's just the conditioner," Mark said weakly. "Maybe once you can rinse it properly, it'll be fine." "It's not the conditioner," Cindy shrieked. "Something is wrong with the water in this place, or the products reacted badly. I don't know, but my hair is ruined. Ruined! I have a photo shoot on Tuesday. This is my livelihood, Mark. This is how I make my living." She started to cry, harsh sobs that shook her whole body. Mark tried to comfort her, putting his arms around her, but she pushed him away violently. "Don't touch me. This is your fault. You brought me to this horrible place with broken bridges and no power and poisoned water. You said it would be romantic. You said it would be perfect." "I didn't know this would happen," Mark protested. "The cabin has never had problems before. I don't understand what's going on." "Well, figure it out," Cindy screamed. "Because I want to leave. I want to leave right now. I'm not staying in this nightmare cabin for another second." "We can't leave," Mark said quietly. "What do you mean we can't leave?" "Your car is gone. Someone stole it while we were in the cabin. I don't know how, I don't know who, but it's not at the bridge anymore." Cindy stared at him in disbelief. "You're joking." "I wish I was," Mark said, "but I'm not. Your car is gone." "My car is still there, but the bridge is too damaged to drive across. We're stuck here until morning when I can call someone for help." "Stuck?" Cindy's voice was barely above a whisper. "We're stuck here? In the dark? With no power? With no water? With my hair destroyed? And no way to leave?" "Just for tonight," Mark said desperately. "In the morning, I'll walk to where there's cell service and call for help. We'll get a tow truck for the bridge. We'll file a police report about your car. We'll figure everything out. But right now, we just need to stay calm and get through the night." "Stay calm?" Cindy laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. It was harsh, bordering on hysterical. "My career is over, Mark. My hair is destroyed. I have no way to fix it, no way to leave. And it's all because you wanted to have your secret affair at your wife's cabin." "Keep your voice down," Mark hissed, looking around as if Angela might somehow hear them, as if the walls had ears. He had no idea how right he was. "Why?" Cindy challenged. "Who's going to hear us? We're alone in the middle of nowhere because you wanted somewhere private to cheat on your wife. Well, congratulations, Mark. This is very private. So private that when everything goes wrong, there's nobody to help us." At Elise and Marvin's house, Angela watched the scene unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and something darker, something that felt like grief. This was what she had wanted. This was the revenge she had planned. But watching it actually happen, seeing Mark's romantic weekend collapse into chaos, and watching his relationship with Cindy fracture under pressure, Angela felt no joy, only a hollow sense of justice served. "Are you okay?" Elise asked quietly. "I don't know," Angela admitted. "Part of me feels like he deserves this, but part of me just feels sad. Sad that this is what our marriage came to. Sad that he chose this, over what we had. What you had was a lie, Elise said, gently but firmly. This is who he really is, a man who lies to everyone, who takes what he wants, without caring who he hurts. You're not destroying a good man, Angela. You're just revealing the truth about a bad one. On the screen, Mark and Cindy's argument continued. They fought about the car, about the cabin, about the hair, about everything. Accusations flew back and forth. Cindy blamed Mark for bringing her to such a remote location. Mark blamed Cindy for wanting to take separate cars. Cindy blamed Mark for not checking the bridge more carefully. Mark blamed Cindy for using so many hair products. Around and around, each of them trying to pin the disaster on the other. You know what? Cindy finally said, her voice cold and hard. I think we should take a break from each other. Clearly this isn't working. What are you talking about? Mark asked. We can't take a break. We're stuck here together until morning. I mean, after this weekend, Cindy clarified. I think we need to reevaluate this relationship. Because right now, all you're bringing into my life is problems. My car is gone. My hair is destroyed. And I'm trapped in the woods with a married man who can't even provide basic electricity. That's not fair, Mark protested. None of this is my fault. Isn't it? Cindy shot back. You chose this location. You insisted it would be perfect. You were responsible for making sure everything was safe and ready. And now, look at us. This was supposed to be a romantic getaway, and instead, it's the worst night of my life. She turned away from him and walked toward the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Mark stood alone in the living room, illuminated by the green glow of the night vision camera, looking lost and defeated. Angela watched him sink onto the couch, his head in his hands. This was the man she had loved for 11 years. This was the man she had built a life with, made plans with, imagined growing old beside. And now he was sitting in their cabin, his affair falling apart around him, completely unaware that his wife had orchestrated the entire disaster. The night stretched on slowly. Mark tried to sleep on the couch, but clearly could not. He kept checking his phone, looking at the time, the battery percentage dropping lower and lower. Cindy remained in the bedroom with the door closed. Occasionally they could hear her crying, harsh sounds that carried through the walls. Around midnight, Mark tried to call someone, his mother perhaps, or a friend, but there was no cell service in the cabin. The isolation that had seemed romantic hours earlier now felt like a prison. At 3 a.m, Cindy emerged from the bedroom. She had put on clothes, jeans and a sweater, and had tied a scarf around her damaged hair. Her eyes were red from crying, her makeup smudged and ruined. I can't sleep, she said flatly. Me neither, Mark admitted. They sat in awkward silence for several minutes. Then Cindy spoke again, her voice tired and defeated. You know what the worst part is? She asked. I actually thought you might leave her for me. I thought maybe this weekend would be the start of something real. But this whole disaster has made me realize something. You're never going to leave your wife, are you? Mark did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. It's complicated. It's not complicated, Cindy said. It's simple. You like having both of us. You like the stability of your marriage and the excitement of an affair. You want to keep your comfortable life with Angela while also having me on the side. That's not complicated, Mark. That's just selfish. That's not true, Mark protested weakly, but even he did not sound convinced. Yes, it is, Cindy said. And you know what? I'm done being the other woman. I'm done sneaking around and lying and being available whenever you have a free evening. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who actually wants to be with me. Not someone who's just having an affair because he's bored with his real life. I do want to be with you, Mark said, but it sounded hollow, desperate. No, you don't, Cindy replied. You want the fantasy of me, but when things get hard, like tonight, you don't know how to handle it. You can't fix anything. You can't make anything better. You just stand there looking helpless while everything falls apart. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the darkness. As soon as the sun comes up, I want you to walk to wherever you can get cell service and call me a cab. I don't care what it costs. I'm leaving. And when I get home, I'm blocking your number. I'm done with this. I'm done with you." Mark did not argue. He just sat on the couch, defeated, watching the woman he had risked his marriage for walk away from him emotionally, even though they were still physically trapped together. Angela turned away from the screen, tears streaming down her face. Elise immediately wrapped her in a hug. Marvin quietly excused himself again, giving them privacy. "Why am I crying?" Angela asked, her voice breaking. "He deserves this. He deserves all of this, and worse. So why does it hurt?" "Because you loved him," Elise said simply. "Because even though he's a cheating liar, even though he betrayed you in the worst way, you still remember the good times. You still remember who you thought he was. And watching that illusion finally die hurts, even when you're the one who killed it." "I thought this would make me feel better," Angela admitted. "I thought watching his perfect weekend fall apart would give me closure. But I just feel empty." "That's because revenge isn't the same as healing," Elise said gently. "Revenge is just the first step. It's you taking back control, refusing to be a victim. But the actual healing? That comes later. That takes time." They sat together on the couch, Angela crying into Elise's shoulder while on the tablet screen, Mark and Cindy sat in separate parts of the cabin, both of them miserable, both of them awake, both of them counting down the hours until sunrise when they could finally escape. As dawn began to break, the cameras automatically adjusted from night vision to normal color. The cabin looked different in daylight, less dramatic, just a normal house where a disastrous weekend had unfolded. Mark was asleep on the couch, his body twisted uncomfortably. Cindy was standing on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the woods. At 7:30 in the morning, Mark woke up. He and Cindy barely spoke. They packed their things mechanically, avoiding eye contact. Then they started the walk down the driveway toward the bridge, carrying their luggage once again. 600 meters that must have felt like 6 miles given the tension between them. At the bridge, they found Mark's car exactly where he had left it. Cindy's car was still missing, though Mark spent several minutes searching the area again, as if it might magically reappear. It did not. Mark made several phone calls, first to report Cindy's car stolen, though he was clearly uncomfortable explaining where they had been when it happened. Then to a towing company about the bridge. Then, finally, to call Cindy a rideshare to take her home. They waited in awkward silence for 45 minutes until the rideshare arrived. When it did, Cindy got in without saying goodbye, without looking back, without any acknowledgement of what they had been to each other. She was just gone, taking her damaged hair and her broken dreams with her. Mark stood alone beside his car for a long time after she left. Then he pulled out his phone and made one more call. "Mom?" His voice came through the tablet's speaker, tired and defeated. "Yeah, it's me. I need to talk to you about something. Can I come over?" He got in his car and drove away, leaving the bridge to be dealt with later, leaving the cabin to sit empty with its secrets and surveillance cameras, leaving the disaster behind him without understanding that the real consequences were still waiting for him back home. Angela turned off the tablet. The show was over. Mark's romantic weekend had been destroyed. His affair had fallen apart. His lies were beginning to catch up with him. And now it was time for Angela to deliver the final blow. Angela spent Saturday in a strange state of numbness. After watching Mark and Cindy's disastrous weekend unfold, after seeing their relationship implode under the pressure of consequences she had carefully orchestrated, she felt hollowed out, empty, as if all the anger and pain that had fueled her for the past week had burned itself out, leaving nothing but ash. Elise insisted she stay for breakfast. Marvin made pancakes, and the three of them sat around the kitchen table not talking about what they had witnessed. Instead, they talked about normal things, the weather, an upcoming election, a new restaurant that had opened downtown, safe topics that required no emotional investment. "What are you going to do now?" Elise finally asked, as Angela prepared to leave around noon. "Confront him," Angela said simply. "He'll come home eventually. Probably today, since his fake corporate retreat was supposed to end tomorrow. He'll walk in expecting everything to be normal, expecting me to believe his lies, and I'm going to tell him I know everything." "You want us to be there?" Marvin offered. "For support?" Angela shook her head. "No, this is something I need to do alone. But thank you for everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you both." She drove home slowly, taking side streets, delaying the inevitable. When she finally pulled into her driveway, the house looked exactly as she had left it. Normal, peaceful. No external sign that the life inside it had been shattered beyond repair. Angela went upstairs and took a long shower. She washed her hair carefully, conditioned it properly, rinsed it thoroughly. The mundane routine felt grounding. She dried her hair, styled it simply, put on makeup, not too much, just enough to look composed. She chose her clothes carefully. Black pants, an emerald green silk blouse that Mark had always said brought out her eyes. She wanted to look strong, dignified, unbroken. Then she sat down at the kitchen table with a folder of documents she had prepared days earlier and waited. Mark came home at 4:30 in the afternoon. She heard his car pull into the driveway, heard the engine cut off, heard his footsteps on the front walk, the key turning in the lock, the door opening, his familiar footfalls in the hallway. He appeared in the kitchen doorway looking exhausted. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled, his hair uncombed. He looked like a man who had been through hell, which Angela supposed he had, just not the hell he had expected. "You're home early," Angela said calmly, her hands folded on the table in front of her. "I thought the retreat went through tomorrow." Mark froze. Something in her tone, in her posture, in the way she was looking at him, must have triggered an alarm. "It got cut short," he said carefully. "Some scheduling issues." "Really?" Angela said. "That's strange, because when I called your office yesterday to ask when you'd be home, your boss said he didn't know about any corporate retreat. In fact, he seemed quite confused about what I was talking about." The color drained from Mark's face. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. "Sit down, Mark," Angela said, her voice still calm, still controlled. She gestured to the chair across from her. "We need to talk." He sat slowly, his movements mechanical, like a man approaching his own execution. "I know about Cindy," Angela said simply. "I've known for a week. I know about the 4 months of lies. I know about the restaurant, the messages, the photos. I know you took her to our cabin for the weekend. I know everything." "Angela, I can explain," Mark began, but she held up her hand. "I don't want explanations," she said. "I don't want excuses. I don't want to hear about how it just happened, or how it didn't mean anything, or how you still love me. I'm done with your lies, Mark. I'm done believing anything that comes out of your mouth." She pushed the folder across the table toward him. "These are divorce papers. They're already filled out. The terms are fair. I'm not trying to destroy you financially. I'm not asking for alimony. I just want an equitable division of assets and my freedom. That's all." Mark stared at the folder like it was a snake. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," Angela replied. "Our marriage is over. It's been over for 4 months, actually. But I just didn't know it yet. Now I do. And I'm not going to waste another day of my life on a man who doesn't value me, doesn't respect me, and doesn't have the decency to be honest with me." "It was a mistake," Mark said desperately. "A stupid, terrible mistake. But it's over now. Cindy and I are done. She doesn't want to see me anymore. Can't we just forget this happened and move forward?" Angela laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, I know you and Cindy are done. I watched your relationship fall apart in real time, actually. Would you like to know how I know?" Mark's expression shifted from desperate to confused. "What are you talking about?" "The bridge," Angela said, leaning forward slightly. "The one leading to our cabin. It didn't just happen to be damaged. My friend's husband, who's a very skilled mechanic, removed several key support bolts, enough to make it unstable for vehicles, but perfectly safe for people walking. That's why you had to leave your car and walk the 600 meters carrying your luggage. Mark's eyes widened in horror and disbelief. The power outage at exactly 8 o'clock Friday night? Angela continued. I scheduled that with the electric company. Claimed I needed the power off for electrical repairs. They were very accommodating. The water, Mark whispered, understanding beginning to dawn. Hydrogen peroxide, Angela confirmed. High concentration, added to the water system. Completely safe for drinking and bathing under normal circumstances. But when activated by heat and not properly rinsed, especially when combined with certain hair products, it causes severe chemical damage to hair. My friend is a research chemist. She explained the whole process to me. Mark sat back in his chair, stunned into silence. And those cameras? Angela said. The ones you never noticed hidden throughout the cabin? Battery-powered, night vision capable, transmitting to a mobile router. I watched the entire weekend, Mark. I saw everything. I heard everything. I watched your romantic getaway turn into a disaster. I watched Cindy's hair get destroyed. I watched her car mysteriously disappear, which honestly wasn't part of my plan. But I'm certainly not complaining about the timing. I watched you two fight and blame each other and fall apart. And do you know what I felt? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. Nothing, she said finally. I felt absolutely nothing. Because the man I loved, the man I thought I was married to, that man doesn't exist. He never existed. You're just a liar who got very good at pretending. Mark's face had gone from pale to gray. You did all that? You planned all of that? Every single detail, Angela confirmed. Except for Cindy's car disappearing. That was just incredibly fortunate timing. Karma, maybe. The universe deciding to participate in your consequences. But why? Mark asked. And he actually sounded confused, as if he could not understand why Angela would want revenge for being betrayed. Why go through all that effort? Why not just confront me? Because confronting you would have given you the chance to lie, Angela said. To minimize what you did. To make excuses. To manipulate me into forgiving you. I've spent 11 years believing your lies, Mark. I wasn't going to give you the opportunity to tell me more. She stood up from the table, her posture straight and dignified. I wanted you to experience consequences. Real consequences, not just uncomfortable conversations you could talk your way out of. I wanted your fantasy to fall apart. I wanted you to see what happens when you build a relationship on lies and deception. It crumbles. It always crumbles. Mark buried his face in his hands. I'm sorry, he said, his voice muffled. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Angela said quietly. And for the first time, her voice wavered slightly. You hurt me more than I thought it was possible to be hurt by another person. You took 11 years of my life, 11 years of my trust, my love, my devotion, and you threw it away for a 28-year-old model. You used our home, our special place, to betray me. You lied to my face every single day for 4 months. You made me question my own judgment, my own worth, my own reality. Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. So yes, I hurt you back. I made your romantic weekend a disaster. I destroyed your affair. I took away your ability to control the narrative, and I don't feel guilty about it, Mark. I feel free. She picked up the folder and held it out to him. Sign the papers. You have until Monday morning. If you don't sign them, I'll file anyway, and I'll make everything public. The messages, the photos, the surveillance footage. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. Your boss, your colleagues, your clients, your family. Everyone will know that Mark Brennan is a liar and a cheater who betrayed his wife of 11 years. You wouldn't do that, Mark said, but he did not sound certain. Try me, Angela said coldly. I just spent a week planning and executing an elaborate revenge scheme. Do you really think I'm bluffing about going public? Mark looked at the folder in his hands, then back at Angela. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care, Angela said honestly. There's a hotel 3 blocks away. Your mother's house, Cindy's apartment, though I suspect she won't be happy to see you. Wherever you go is your problem, not mine. Your things are packed in the guest room. Take them and leave. I want you out of this house in the next 30 minutes. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving Mark sitting alone at the table with the divorce papers in front of him. She went upstairs to the bedroom they had shared, closed the door, and finally allowed herself to completely break down. Angela collapsed on the floor beside the bed, hugging her knees to her chest, and sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of her being. She cried for the marriage she thought she had. She cried for the future she had imagined. She cried for all the moments she had believed were real, but were actually lies. She cried for the version of herself that had trusted so completely, so naively. She cried for the woman she had been last week, the woman who had helped her husband pack for a fake corporate retreat, who had folded his shirts and kissed him goodbye, who had believed that her marriage was solid and her husband loved her. That woman was gone, destroyed by the truth, and Angela mourned her. But underneath the grief, underneath the pain, there was something else, something hard and bright and unbreakable. It was anger, yes, but it was more than that. It was determination. It was strength. It was the absolute certainty that she would survive this, that she would not just survive, but rebuild herself into something better, something stronger. She heard movement downstairs, footsteps, the sound of luggage being dragged across the floor, the front door opening and closing, a car engine starting, Mark driving away, and then silence. Beautiful, terrible, liberating silence. Angela stood up slowly. She walked to the bathroom, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her makeup was ruined. She looked like a woman who had been crying for hours, but she also looked like a woman who was still standing, still breathing, still here. Over the following days, Angela received the signed divorce papers by mail on Monday morning, as she had demanded. No note, no apology, just his signature on the dotted lines. She filed them immediately, starting the legal process of ending their marriage. She also received a call from Mark's mother, Catherine Brennan, a woman Angela had always been close with. Catherine was 65 years old, elegant, kind, and had treated Angela like the daughter she never had. Mark told me what happened, Catherine said, when Angela answered. Not all of it, I'm sure. He gave me some vague story about making mistakes, and you being unreasonable. But I know my son, Angela, and I can read between the lines. He cheated on you, didn't he? Yes, Angela said simply. There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. I'm ashamed of him. I raised him to be better than this. I thought I raised him to be a man of integrity. Clearly I failed somewhere. This isn't your failure, Catherine, Angela said gently. Mark made his own choices. He's responsible for his own actions. I know, Catherine said, but I'm still disappointed. And I'm calling because I want you to know that even though my son is divorcing you, I'm not. I still consider you family, Angela. If you'll allow it, I'd like to stay in contact. Have lunch occasionally. Keep that relationship we built. Angela felt tears welling up again, but these were different tears. Warmer, somehow. I'd like that very much. Good, Catherine said firmly, because you were the best thing that ever happened to my son, and if he was too stupid to appreciate you, that's his loss, but it doesn't have to be mine. The conversation gave Angela a strange kind of comfort. Not everything had to be destroyed by Mark's betrayal. Some connections could survive, could be preserved, could even grow stronger in different forms. Angela threw herself into work with renewed focus. She accepted a challenging project she would have previously declined because it conflicted with Mark's schedule. The project was designing a community center for an underserved neighborhood, exactly the kind of meaningful architectural work she had been passionate about before she let her career take a back seat to her marriage. She worked late nights, not because she was avoiding an empty home, though that was part of it, but because she was genuinely excited about the work. She was creating something beautiful, something functional, something that would make people's lives better. And for the first time in years, she felt like herself. Not Mark's wife, not half of a couple, just Angela, just herself. 3 weeks after Mark moved out, Elise convinced Angela to go to therapy. "You can't just bury the pain in work," Elise said gently. "You need to process what happened. You need to heal, not just survive." Angela resisted at first, but eventually agreed. She found a therapist named Dr. Patricia Reeves, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. In their sessions, Angela began to unpack not just the affair, but the entire marriage. She realized how much of herself she had compromised over the years, how she had made her career smaller to support Mark's ambitions, how she had accepted less affection, less attention, less partnership than she deserved, because she was afraid of being demanding or difficult. "You lost yourself in that marriage," Dr. Reeves observed during their 4th session. "You became so focused on being the perfect wife that you forgot to be Angela." "So what do I do now?" Angela asked. "You remember who Angela is," Dr. Reeves said simply. "You rediscover your interests, your passions, your goals. You build a life that's authentically yours, not a life designed around someone else's needs." Angela took that advice seriously. She signed up for a painting class, something she had loved in college but abandoned because Mark found it boring. She discovered she was still good at it, still found joy in mixing colors and creating something from nothing. She started traveling alone, short weekend trips at first. She went to a coastal town and spent 2 days walking on the beach, eating at small restaurants, reading books without interruption. It was lonely sometimes, but it was also peaceful. She was learning to enjoy her own company, to be comfortable in solitude. 2 months after the divorce was filed, Angela went back to the cabin. She almost did not go, almost sold it without ever returning. But Elise convinced her to visit one more time before making that decision. The bridge had been repaired professionally. The power had been restored. The water system had been flushed and cleaned. All evidence of what had happened was gone. It was just a cabin again, just a building. Angela walked through the rooms slowly, touching surfaces, looking out windows, remembering. But the memories felt distant now, like they belonged to someone else. The Angela who had decorated this cabin with such hope and joy felt like a different person from the woman standing here now. She decided to keep it, not because of what it had been, but because of what it could become. She would redecorate completely, erase every trace of the life she had shared with Mark. She would make it hers, truly hers, a place that represented her new beginning instead of her old ending. Over the following months, Angela transformed both the cabin and herself. She hired contractors to update the cabin's interior. New furniture, new colors, new energy. When it was finished, it looked nothing like the place where Mark had brought Cindy. It was lighter, brighter, more modern. It was Angela's aesthetic, not a compromise between her taste and Mark's. She also transformed herself, though more subtly. She cut her hair shorter, a sleek style that was easier to maintain, and made her look more sophisticated. She started dressing differently, choosing clothes that made her feel confident rather than clothes designed to please anyone else. She took up running, not to lose weight or change her appearance, but because she enjoyed the mental clarity it gave her. 4 months after the confrontation, Angela was at a coffee shop working on her laptop when she ran into Mark. He was standing in line, looking thinner, more tired. When he saw her, his face went pale. "Angela," he said quietly. "Hi." "Hello, Mark," she replied, her voice neutral. "You look good," he said, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. "Really good. Different." "I am different," Angela said simply. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Mark said, "I've been wanting to apologize. Really apologize. Not just the half-hearted sorry I gave you before. What I did was inexcusable. You deserved so much better than how I treated you, and I'm genuinely sorry for all the pain I caused." Angela looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no resentment. Just a mild curiosity about how she had ever thought this man was her entire world. "Thank you for saying that," she said. "I appreciate the apology." "Is there any chance," Mark began hesitantly, "that we could try again? Start over? I've learned so much from this. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on myself. I know I don't deserve another chance, but—" "No," Angela interrupted gently but firmly. "There's no chance, Mark. What we had is over. It's been over for a long time, actually. We were just both too comfortable to admit it." Mark nodded slowly, accepting the rejection. "I hope you find someone who treats you the way I should have." "I already found someone," Angela said, and watched Mark's expression falter. "Myself. I found myself. And honestly, Mark, that's better than any relationship." She picked up her coffee and her laptop. "Take care of yourself," she said, and walked out without looking back. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Angela's community center project was completed. The opening ceremony was attended by local politicians, community leaders, and the residents who would use the space. Angela stood at the ribbon cutting, looking at the building she had designed, and felt a pride so profound it brought tears to her eyes. This was hers, her vision, her work, her accomplishment. Nobody could take it away from her or claim credit for it. It was proof that she was capable, talented, valuable all on her own. After the ceremony, as she was accepting congratulations from various attendees, a woman approached her. She was probably in her mid-30s, with short red hair and green eyes. "That was a beautiful speech," the woman said, smiling. "I'm Rachel Torres. I work for an architectural magazine. We'd love to do a feature on your work, if you're interested." "I'd be honored," Angela said, surprised and pleased. They exchanged contact information, talked briefly about the project, and scheduled an interview. As Rachel walked away, Elise appeared at Angela's elbow. "She was flirting with you," Elise said with a grin. "She was not," Angela protested, but she was smiling. "She absolutely was," Elise insisted. "And you should call her, not just for the article, for coffee, for dinner, for whatever feels right." "I'm not ready to date yet," Angela said. "Maybe not," Elise agreed. "But someday you will be. And when that day comes, remember that you deserve someone who sees your worth, someone who treats you with respect and honesty, someone who makes you feel valued, not diminished." "I'll remember," Angela promised. That night, Angela sat in her newly renovated living room, drinking wine and looking at photos from the community center opening on her phone. She had done this. She had survived betrayal, planned revenge, endured grief, and rebuilt herself from the ground up. She had taken the worst thing that had ever happened to her and transformed it into fuel for becoming the best version of herself. She thought about Mark occasionally, but without pain now. He was just a chapter in her story, an important one perhaps, but definitely over. She wondered if he ever thought about what he had lost. She wondered if he understood that he had traded a real partnership for a fantasy. And when that fantasy collapsed, he was left with nothing. But mostly, she did not wonder about Mark at all, because her life was no longer about him. It was about her work, her goals, her happiness, her future. Angela picked up her sketchbook and began drawing. Not architectural plans, but just art for art's sake. Flowing lines and abstract shapes that represented nothing except what they were. Beautiful, imperfect, authentic. She was healing. Not healed, not yet, perhaps not ever completely. The scar would always be there, a reminder of what she had endured. But scars were proof of survival. They were evidence that she had been wounded and had knit herself back together, stronger than before. The woman who had helped Mark pack for his fake retreat, who had believed his lies, who had questioned her own worth, that woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, yes, but also more honest, someone who knew her own value and would never again settle for less than she deserved. Angela set down her sketchbook and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Mark was living his life, dealing with his own consequences. Cindy was probably working with shorter hair, maybe wearing extensions, maybe having learned nothing from the experience. But here, in this house that was now solely Angela's, in this life she was building brick by brick, there was peace, there was possibility, there was the future stretching out before her, unknown, but no longer frightening. She had been betrayed, she had been hurt, she had taken revenge. And then, most importantly, she had let it all go and moved forward. Because in the end, the best revenge was not what she had done to Mark and Cindy in that cabin. The best revenge was this moment, right here. Standing in her own home, proud of her own accomplishments, comfortable in her own skin, genuinely happy with her own company. The best revenge was living well, and Angela was finally, truly beginning to live. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.